The 5 essentials of sailing describe the 5 things that a cruising dinghy sailor uses to sail the boat as safely and as efficiently as possible. Sail trim, boat balance, boat trim, the position of the centreboard or the daggerboard, and what they call course made good or course over ground, which is the actual route taken to get to where you want to go. It's worth mentioning at this stage what actually makes a good cruising dinghy. To my way of thinking, dinghy cruising is not about sailing as fast and as efficient as you can possibly go. Moonlight is a heavy boat, especially compared to plywood and epoxy constructions with planing hulls and hard chines. Moonlight is more of a displacement style of boat, and as such she's very stable. The word tender has 2 meanings in English. One is you can have a tender which is a small boat, and you can have a boat which is tender. You'll see in this video that even though Moonlight is relatively stable, given enough wind and suitable conditions, it's still possible to tip her over. Getting the sails trim right in a cruising dinghy is a bit different to a racing dinghy. It's more about having the right amount of sail for the condition. Reefing the sail means that you can reduce the sail area sufficiently so that you can sail with some comfort in fairly extreme conditions. Matthew and Flinders explored a large amount of the coastline of Australia and right through Bass Strait and Tasmania in a boat that was only 8 feet long. Moonlight is 12 feet long. Sometimes the romantic part of my sailing nature has me thinking about doing some coastal cruising in Moonlight just to show that it can be done. Once you've got your sails set up the way that they need to be, you need to be thinking about the boat balance. That's all about which side the sailor sits on and how far out he sits to make sure that the boat sails either level or with a moderate heel. Moonlight sails a bit better when she's heeling a little bit because it lengthens the waterline on the leeward side, or the side away from where the wind's coming from. Boat trim in a cruising dinghy is going to be greatly affected by the way you load the boat. If you're cruising and you've got a fair bit of gear on board, you're going to tend to want to put that up in front of the thwart, in which case you've got a lot of weight forward. You've also got to consider how you distribute the weight across the boat as you place things further back under the benches and so on. It's then about where you actually sit, and that will change depending on your point of sail. If you're trying to head pretty high into the wind, then probably a masthead rig is going to do it more efficiently. A traditional boat like this is really not designed to point extra high, and if you try to do so, you'll actually interfere with the sailing performance. If you're heading up, then the rule of thumb is that you tend to want to put your weight further forward. On this occasion, sailing in very strong wind, I managed to break the blade off my rudder, and so I was sailing with very limited steerage. That meant that a couple of times the boat got right to the tipping point, and I had to take some pretty quick action to prevent it from swamping. When you're trying to point too high, such as we were on this day when we were racing on the Noosa River, you find that the headsail starts to luff and can end up being backwinded, and you lose a lot of speed. So with a traditional boat, better to lay off the wind a bit. Your centreboard, or in some cases a daggerboard, is what stops your boat from drifting sideways and projects the boat in a forward direction. How much centreboard you have down when you're cruising sometimes is purely about how much water you've got underneath the keel of your boat. But if you're trying to sail most efficiently, then if you're trying to point high, full depth of daggerboard. If you're reaching, then about halfway, and if you're heading downwind, you can pull the daggerboard up altogether because it's just creating resistance. The next thing that the experts talk about is course made good or course over ground, and that's the actual route that's taken to achieve your objective. Now that's not going to be the straightest line. It'll often depend on the characteristics of the boat that you're sailing, what course you actually can take. Stay safe and enjoy your sailing, and get out on the water anytime you can. Don't be afraid to go out in conditions that will test your abilities, strip everything that really matters out of your boat and sail hard. Even try tipping over in safe circumstances, just so you can learn what to do and how to recover should the worst thing happen on an actual cruise. This is the second video that I've made on cruising dinghy basics, and there's plenty more to come. Make sure you subscribe and click on the bell so you get notifications when the next video is published.